There comes a moment in many people's lives when they wake up in the morning and feel a strange emptiness. Nothing feels exciting anymore. The dreams that once filled their hearts now feel distant. The motivation that once pushed them forward has slowly faded away. And deep inside, a question keeps repeating, why do I feel so lost? The truth is, feeling lost is not a sign of weakness. It is often a sign that your life is asking you to grow. When life becomes routine, when every day feels the same, the mind begins to drift. You start questioning your direction, your purpose, and even your worth. But that feeling is not the end of your journey. It is often the beginning of discovering who you truly are. Many people believe laziness is the problem. They blame themselves for not working hard enough, for procrastinating, for lacking discipline. But laziness is rarely the real problem. Most of the time, what looks like laziness is actually a lack of clarity. When you don't know where you are going, it becomes very difficult to move forward. Imagine trying to drive a car without knowing the destination. Eventually, you would stop the car and feel stuck. Another reason people feel unmotivated is because they spend too much time comparing themselves to others. Social media, society, and expectations create a false image of success. You see people who seem to have everything figured out, the career, the money, the confidence, the happiness. And when you compare your journey to theirs, it can make you feel like you're falling behind. But every person has a different timeline. Your journey is not supposed to look like anyone else's. Sometimes the feeling of being lost also comes from ignoring your inner voice. Deep inside, every person carries a quiet wisdom. It whispers what feels right and what doesn't. But many people silence that voice because they are afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of making the wrong choice. Over time, ignoring that inner guidance disconnects you from your purpose. Life also has a way of exhausting us emotionally. When you go through disappointments, heartbreaks, failures, or constant pressure, your energy begins to drain. Motivation is not only about discipline, it is also about emotional health. When your heart is tired, your mind struggles to stay focused in those moments. What you need is not punishment or self-criticism. What you need is patience and self-understanding. The most powerful realization is this: feeling lost is temporary. It does not define who you are or what your future will be. Many of the most successful and fulfilled people once felt completely lost. What changed their lives was not a sudden miracle, but a simple decision, the decision to take one small step forward. Purpose is not always discovered in one dramatic moment. Often it reveals itself through small actions taken consistently. When you try new things, learn new skills, meet new people, and challenge your fears, life begins to open doors you never expected. Clarity comes through movement, not through waiting. Another important truth is that motivation does not always come first. Many people wait to feel motivated before they act, but in reality, motivation usually follows action. When you start doing something, even a small task, your mind begins to shift. Progress creates energy, and energy creates motivation. You must also learn to forgive yourself. Everyone has days where they feel tired, confused, or uncertain. That is part of being human. The goal is not to be perfect every day. The goal is to keep moving even if the steps are small. Remember this: your life is not a race against others. It is a journey of discovering your own strengths, your own passions, and your own voice. The moment you stop comparing and start listening to yourself, everything begins to change. Feeling lost does not mean you have no direction. Sometimes it simply means you are standing at the edge of a new chapter, waiting to discover what you are truly capable of becoming. And one day, when you look back at this moment of confusion and doubt, you may realize something powerful. The time you felt the most lost was actually the moment that started guiding you toward the life you were meant to live. Many people believe that feeling lost in life means something is wrong with them. They think it is a sign of failure weakness or lack of direction. But in reality, feeling lost is often a powerful sign that you are standing at the edge of personal growth and transformation. It is a moment when life begins to challenge the person you used to be and invites you to become someone stronger, wiser, and more aware of your true purpose. Every human being goes through periods of confusion, uncertainty, and doubt. These moments can feel uncomfortable, sometimes even painful, because they force you to question everything you once believed about yourself and your future. The plans that once seemed clear may suddenly feel uncertain. The goals that once motivated you may no longer inspire you, and the path you were walking may start to feel unfamiliar. But this does not mean you are moving backward. It often means you are evolving. Growth rarely feels comfortable. When a person is growing, their old habits, beliefs, and identities begin to break apart. The version of yourself that once felt safe no longer fits the person you are becoming. This creates a temporary feeling of being lost because you are leaving behind what is familiar while the new path has not fully revealed itself yet. It is like standing between two chapters of your life. The old one has ended, but the new one has not yet been written. Think about how nature works. Before a butterfly becomes beautiful and free, it must go through a stage where everything changes inside the cocoon. During that process, it may look like nothing is happening from the outside, but inside a deep transformation is taking place. The same thing happens in human life. When you feel lost, it may simply mean that your mind, your values, and your understanding of the world are changing in ways that will later make you stronger. Another reason feeling lost is connected to growth is because it forces you to reflect on your life. When everything feels comfortable and predictable, most people continue living on autopilot. They follow routines, expectations, and habits without questioning whether those things truly make them happy. But when you feel lost, you begin asking deeper questions. You start wondering what really matters to you, what kind of life you truly want to live, and what kind of person you want to become. This reflection is extremely important because it helps you discover your authentic self. Instead of living according to other people's expectations, you begin learning to listen to your own voice. You start noticing which activities give you energy, which environments inspire you, and which goals actually feel meaningful to your heart. Without the experience of feeling lost, many people would never stop to explore these deeper parts of themselves. It is also important to understand that growth takes time. In a world that constantly demands quick success and instant results, people often feel frustrated when they cannot immediately find their direction. But personal development is not a race. Some of the most meaningful discoveries about yourself come slowly through experiences, mistakes, lessons, and patience. When you feel lost, it is helpful to remember that this phase is temporary. It is not your final destination. It is simply part of the journey. Instead of fighting the feeling, try to learn from it. Use this time to explore new ideas, develop new skills, and open your mind to possibilities you may have never considered before. Sometimes the path forward becomes clear only after you have spent time in uncertainty. That period of confusion can sharpen your awareness, strengthen your resilience, and prepare you for opportunities that you could not have handled before. In this way, feeling lost is not a sign that your life is falling apart. It may actually be a sign that your life is preparing you for a new direction. So when you experience those moments of doubt, confusion, and uncertainty, do not immediately assume that something is wrong with you. Instead, consider the possibility that you are in the middle of an important transformation. The person you were yesterday may no longer fit the future that is waiting for you, and that uncomfortable space between the two is where real growth begins. Many people often call themselves lazy when they struggle to take action in life. They look at their unfinished goals, their delayed plans, and their lack of motivation, and they quickly assume that laziness is the problem. Society also reinforces this belief. When someone is not productive or active, they are immediately labeled as lazy, undisciplined, or unmotivated. But the truth is much deeper than that. In most cases, laziness is not the real issue. The real problem is often a lack of clarity. Clarity means having a clear understanding of why you want it and where you are going. When a person has strong clarity about their goals and purpose, they naturally feel more driven to take action. Their mind becomes focused, their energy becomes directed, and their daily efforts start to feel meaningful. But when clarity is missing, even the simplest task can feel heavy and overwhelming. Imagine trying to walk through a thick fog. You know you need to move forward, but you cannot see the road clearly. Every step feels uncertain, and every decision feels confusing. Eventually, you slow down or stop walking altogether, not because you are lazy, because you do not know where the path leads. This is exactly what happens in life when someone lacks clarity. Without a clear direction, the brain struggles to find motivation. Another important reason why lack of clarity creates the feeling of laziness is because the human mind needs purpose to stay energized. When your actions are connected to a meaningful goal, you feel a sense of progress and excitement. But when you are working on something that does not feel important to you, your mind begins to resist. Tasks start to feel boring, meaningless, or exhausting, even if they are not physically difficult. For example, many people work in jobs that do not inspire them or follow paths that were chosen for them by others. They may continue doing the work every day, but deep inside they feel disconnected from it. Over time, that disconnection slowly drains their energy. They begin procrastinating, delaying tasks, and losing interest in responsibilities. From the outside, it may look like laziness, but in reality, it is a lack of emotional connection with what they are doing. Clarity also affects how the brain processes decisions. When goals are unclear, the mind constantly tries to evaluate different possibilities. Should I do this, or should I try something else? Is this the right path, or am I wasting my time? These constant internal questions create mental fatigue. The brain becomes overloaded with uncertainty, and as a result, it starts avoiding action altogether. This avoidance is often mistaken for laziness. One of the most powerful ways to overcome this problem is by developing clearer goals and intentions. Instead of trying to change everything at once, it helps to start with simple questions. What truly matters to you? What kind of life do you want to create? What activities make you feel alive and engaged? When you begin answering these questions honestly, your mind slowly starts forming a clearer picture of your direction. Another helpful step is breaking large goals into smaller, manageable actions. When a goal feels too big or too distant, it can easily create fear and procrastination. But when you focus on one small step at a time, progress becomes easier to see. Each completed step builds confidence, and confidence creates momentum. Over time, this momentum replaces the feeling of laziness with a sense of purpose and motivation. It is also important to be patient with yourself during this process. Clarity does not always appear instantly. Sometimes it develops gradually through experience, exploration, and learning. Trying different things, making mistakes, and discovering what does not work are all part of the journey toward understanding what truly fits your life. The key lesson is that most people are not lazy by nature. Human beings naturally want to grow, create, and contribute to something meaningful. But when direction is missing, that natural drive becomes blocked. Once clarity begins to appear, the same person who once felt lazy can suddenly become focused, energetic, and determined. So instead of criticizing yourself for feeling lazy, Take a moment to examine your direction. Ask yourself whether your goals truly reflect what you want or whether they are simply expectations placed on you by others. When your path becomes clear and meaningful, your motivation often returns naturally, and the label of laziness slowly disappears. One of the biggest reasons people feel lost, unmotivated, and dissatisfied with their lives is the constant habit of comparing themselves to others. In today's world, this habit has become even stronger because of social media, public expectations, and the pressure to succeed quickly. Everywhere you look, there are images of people who appear successful, confident, wealthy, and happy. When you constantly see these images, it becomes easy to believe that everyone else is moving ahead while you are standing still. Comparison begins quietly in the mind. At first, it may seem harmless. You see someone achieving something impressive and you start thinking about your own progress. But over time, this comparison slowly transforms into self-doubt. You begin asking yourself difficult questions. Why am I not as successful as them? Why is my life not moving as fast? What am I doing wrong? These questions can slowly weaken your confidence. Instead of focusing on your own journey, you start measuring your worth based on someone else's life. This creates unnecessary pressure because every person's path is different. People come from different backgrounds, face different struggles, and move through life at different speeds. When you ignore these differences and only focus on outcomes, comparison becomes unfair and destructive. Another reason comparison damages motivation is because it changes how you see your own achievements. Even when you make progress, it may no longer feel meaningful. For example, imagine you work hard to improve your skills or achieve a small goal. Normally, that success would give you confidence and motivation to continue growing. But if you immediately compare your progress to someone who appears further ahead, your accomplishment suddenly feels small. Instead of feeling proud, you feel discouraged. This constant comparison can create a cycle of negativity. The more you compare yourself, the more you feel behind. The more you feel behind, the more your motivation decreases. Eventually, you may stop trying altogether because you believe you can never reach the level of others. In this way, comparison slowly steals your energy, your confidence, and your willingness to keep improving. It is also important to understand that what we see in other people's lives is often incomplete. Most people share only the best parts of their experiences. They show their successes, their highlights, and their achievements, but rarely show their failure struggles or doubts. As a result, you may be comparing your full reality to someone else's carefully presented image. This creates an illusion that others have perfect lives while you are the only one facing difficulties. In reality, every person experiences challenges. Behind every visible success, there are usually years of effort, mistakes, and setbacks that most people never see. When you remember this truth, it becomes easier to release the pressure of comparison and return your focus to your own growth. Instead of comparing your life to others, a healthier approach is to compare yourself to your past self. Ask yourself simple questions. Am I learning new things? Am I becoming a stronger person than I was before? Am I improving even in small ways? When you measure progress based on your own personal growth, every step forward becomes meaningful. Another powerful shift happens when you begin to see other people's success as inspiration instead of competition. Someone else's achievements do not reduce your potential. In fact, they can remind you of what is possible. When you celebrate the progress of others while still focusing on your own journey, you protect your motivation and maintain a healthy mindset. Confidence grows when you appreciate your unique path. Your experiences, struggles, and lessons are shaping you into a person that no one else can become. The world does not need another copy of someone else's life. It needs individuals who are willing to discover their own strengths and follow their own direction. When you release the habit of comparison, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes calmer, your energy becomes more focused, and your motivation begins to return. Instead of wasting time worrying about where others are in life, you start investing that energy into building the life that truly belongs to you. In the end, your journey is not about racing against others. It is about growing into the best version of yourself, step by step, day by day, at the pace that is meant for you. One of the biggest misunderstandings about success and productivity is the belief that motivation must come first. Many people wait for the perfect moment to feel inspired, energetic, and ready before they begin working on their goals. They tell themselves that once they feel motivated, they will start studying, exercising, building their dreams, or changing their lives. But the truth is very different. In reality, motivation usually comes after action, not before it. When people wait for motivation to appear on its own, they often remain stuck for a long time. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months, and sometimes even years pass without meaningful progress. During this waiting period, a person may begin to feel even more discouraged. They see their goals getting further away, and they assume that something is wrong with them because they do not feel motivated enough to start. However, motivation is not a magical feeling that suddenly appears without effort. It is a natural result of movement and progress. When you begin taking action, even in small ways, your brain starts to shift its energy. Completing a task, learning something new, or moving one step forward creates a sense of accomplishment. That small sense of progress sends a positive signal to your mind, which then increases your motivation to continue. Think about how difficult it can feel to start something new. The beginning often feels heavy and uncomfortable. Your mind may try to convince you to delay the task, telling you that you will start tomorrow or later in the day. This resistance happens because starting requires mental energy. But once you begin the activity, the difficulty often disappears much faster than expected. For example, imagine someone who wants to start exercising. Before beginning, they may feel tired, lazy, or unmotivated. The idea of working out might feel exhausting. But once they put on their shoes, step outside, and start moving, their energy begins to change. Their body wakes up, their mind becomes more focused, and after a few minutes, they may even start enjoying the activity. The motivation they were waiting for appears because they started, not before. This same principle applies to almost every area of life. Students who begin studying often feel more focused after reading just a few pages. Writers who start writing one paragraph often continue writing for hours. Entrepreneurs who begin working on a small idea often develop the excitement to grow it further. The act of starting creates momentum, and momentum builds motivation. Another reason action creates motivation is because it reduces fear and uncertainty. When a goal exists only in your mind, it can feel overwhelming. Your brain imagines all the possible difficulties and failures that might happen. This creates hesitation and anxiety. But when you take the first step, the situation becomes more real and manageable. Instead of thinking about the entire journey, you begin focusing on the next small step. Small actions also help build confidence. Each completed task proves to your mind that progress is possible. Over time, these small victories accumulate and transform your self-belief. What once felt impossible begins to feel achievable. The more you act, the more confident you become, and the more motivation naturally follows. It is also important to remember that you do not need to start with something big or dramatic. Many people avoid action because they believe their first step must be perfect or impressive. But meaningful progress often begins with simple efforts. Writing one idea, reading one page, practicing for a few minutes, or learning one new skill can slowly build the momentum needed for larger achievements. Consistency is far more powerful than sudden bursts of motivation. When you commit to taking small actions regularly, your habits begin shaping your identity. You start seeing yourself as a person who takes action, who moves forward and who continues growing even when things feel difficult. Over time, this mindset completely changes your relationship with motivation. Instead of waiting for inspiration, you learn to create it through your actions. You understand that progress generates energy, and energy fuels further progress. In the end, the most successful and fulfilled people are not the ones who always feel motivated. They are the ones who have learned the discipline of starting even when motivation is missing. Once they take the first step, motivation follows naturally, guiding toward the next step, and the next, until their goals slowly become reality. One of the most powerful truths about success and personal growth is that big changes rarely happen overnight. Many people believe that finding purpose or direction in life requires a sudden moment of inspiration, a dramatic opportunity, or a life-changing event. While those moments sometimes happen, the reality is that most meaningful transformations are built slowly through small, consistent steps taken over time. When people feel lost or unmotivated, they often look for a quick solution. They want a clear answer to all their questions, a perfect plan that will immediately solve their confusion. But life rarely works that way. Purpose is not always something you discover in a single moment. Instead, it often reveals itself gradually as you explore, learn, and grow through everyday actions. Small steps may seem insignificant at first, but they have incredible power when practiced consistently. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. On the first day, you see nothing. On the second day, it still looks like nothing is happening. For many days, the soil appears unchanged. But beneath the surface, the seed is slowly growing roots, gathering strength, and preparing to emerge. Eventually, that tiny seed becomes a strong tree. The same principle applies to personal growth and life direction. Every small action you take contributes to shaping your future. Reading a few pages of a book, learning a new skill, practicing discipline for a short time each day, or improving one habit may seem minor in the moment. But when these actions are repeated regularly, they begin to create powerful changes in your mindset and abilities. Over time, those small improvements accumulate and lead to significant progress. Another important benefit of small steps is that they make challenges feel more manageable. When a goal is too large or complicated, it can feel overwhelming. The mind begins to doubt whether success is even possible. This doubt often leads to procrastination or giving up before truly trying. However, when you break a big goal into smaller actions, the journey becomes easier to handle. Each step feels achievable, and each achievement builds confidence for the next step. Consistency also plays a crucial role in discovering purpose. Many people believe that purpose is something they must find before taking action. But in reality, purpose often becomes clear because of action. When you try different experiences, explore different interests, and invest time in learning, you begin to notice patterns in what excites you and what does not. Through this process, your direction slowly becomes clearer. For example, someone might begin learning a new skill simply out of curiosity. At first, it may just feel like a small hobby or experiment. But over time, that interest may grow into a passion, a career opportunity, or a meaningful contribution to others. If that person had waited for a perfect sense of purpose before starting, they might never have discovered that path. Another powerful effect of small, consistent actions is the development of discipline. Motivation can come and go depending on emotions, energy, and circumstances, but discipline allows a person to continue moving forward even on difficult days. When you commit to taking small steps regularly, you train your mind to stay focused on progress rather than perfection. It is also important to understand that progress does not always appear immediately. Some days will feel productive and exciting, while other days may feel slow or frustrating. During those moments, many people become discouraged and believe their efforts are not working. But consistency means continuing even when results are not visible yet. Just like the seed growing underground, many important changes are happening beneath the surface before they become visible. Patience is therefore an essential part of this process. Building a meaningful life takes time. Skills require practice, confidence develops through experience, and direction becomes clearer through exploration. When you allow yourself the patience to grow step by step, you create space for genuine progress instead of forcing unrealistic expectations. Eventually, something remarkable begins to happen. The small steps you once considered insignificant start connecting together. Your knowledge grows, your confidence strengthens, and your understanding of yourself becomes deeper. The direction that once seemed unclear slowly begins to reveal itself. In the end, purpose is not built in one giant leap. It is built through hundreds of small decisions made consistently over time. Every step forward, no matter how small it may seem, moves you closer to the life you are meant to create. When you trust the process of steady progress, the path that once felt confusing gradually becomes a journey filled with clarity, growth, and meaning. Feeling lost, lazy, or unmotivated in life is something almost everyone experiences at some point. These feelings can be confusing and frustrating, but they are not permanent and they do not define who you are. In many cases, these moments are simply signals that something inside your life needs attention, reflection, and growth. When you begin to understand the deeper reasons behind these feelings, everything starts to make more sense. Sometimes you feel lost because you are growing and changing into a new version of yourself. Sometimes what looks like laziness is actually a lack of clarity about your goals and direction. Other times, constant comparison with others slowly damages your confidence and makes your progress feel smaller than it really is. It is also important to remember that motivation is not something you must wait for. Motivation often appears after you begin taking action. Even the smallest step forward can create momentum, and that momentum can slowly rebuild your confidence and energy. Progress does not require perfection, it only requires movement. Life is not meant to be figured out all at once. Direction and purpose often appear through small, consistent actions taken day by day. Every time you learn something new, improve a habit, or try something different, you are shaping your future. Even when progress feels slow, those small steps are quietly building strength, knowledge, and clarity within you. The most powerful thing you can do during times of confusion is to remain patient with yourself. Growth takes time, and every person's journey unfolds differently. What matters most is not how fast you move, but that you continue moving forward. One day, you may look back at this period of uncertainty and realize that it was not a time of failure at all. Instead, it was a moment that forced you to think deeper, grow stronger, and search for a life that truly belongs to you. So if you ever feel lost, lazy, or unmotivated, remember that these feelings are not the end of your story. They may simply be the beginning of a new chapter, one that is guiding you toward a clearer purpose, a stronger mindset, and a more meaningful life.